students, learners during transition to be successful in their lives in very broad sense of the meaning of the success. So I will focus on a number of points. First of all, what transition research currently focuses on. Before that, I will try to briefly introduce the current understanding of disability, and then why current approaches, meaning the approaches to transition, are insufficient. I also mentioned the transition as a course process, active citizenship as an alternative framework, and I'll conclude with some implications for policy and practice. Now let's focus a little bit on disability, what actually disability is. And if I raise this question, everybody in the hall and online would be able to give us an answer how she or he understands or disability. However, as we've seen in the literature and the research, there has been a shift in understanding and assessing disability. The shift is from the understanding disability in terms of deficits, where the deficit paradigm focuses on deficit established through usually standardized measures. Very often these measures or tools come from medical fields or psychology. For example, the IQ tests to measure intelligence. They relatively recently, particularly in the European context, they're kind of talking about support in education. Nevertheless, it's also important to bear in mind that the life is very complex. So the support needs to be focused not only on education, but also on transition and other domains of life. And I'll talk about it a little bit more during the next slides. So the quality of life appears to be one of very important indicator of evaluating or assessing impact of different supports and interventions. Now, let's introduce again rather briefly the transition. So transition is a series of interconnected life events. Transitions can be individually or socially normative. So what I mean by individually or socially normative, for example, social normative transition is joining the formal education. So everybody in Kenya, very likely by law, has a duty, or the parents has a duty to send a child when he reaches 6 years to formal education. In our country, it's 6 years of age. The other normative transition is, for example, retirement. Everybody in this country, in Europe, knows when he or she is going to retire. So these are the normative transitions introduced and controlled or ruled by the system. In addition, we also can find the individual transitions, which happens in a kind of an unorganized way. For example, if a child with disability is not enrolled to a school, it's an individual transition, same as illness, for example, or the absence of support does have a strong influence on transition. The transition, as I mentioned already, is significantly important for persons with disability. I'm particularly the support, or better to say, the support during transition. We know from the research the successfully navigating transition process likely influences trajectory of adulthood. And I would also say it's not only the importance of successful transition for adulthood for persons with disability, but for everybody. Now, what's the current research tells us about transition, disability support? We recently completed and published a study on what is known in research about transition programs with a focus on particularly people with intellectual disabilities. And one of the findings is that most transition programs focus on obtaining paid employment. I would also suggest that the transition programs focus also in support system which universities provide on paid employment. The considerable attention is also given to the transition from child to adult health, social care, and mental health services. Definitions and policies, measures of success vary considerably across countries. In other words, the systems they are grounded on different definitions what actually successful transition is. But we also completed recently a research where we're asking young people with intellectual disabilities and their parents how they would interpret successful transition, meaning the transition from education to adult life. And the finding is that the young people with disabilities, their sort of understanding or definitions of successful transition was not different for those without disabilities. We interviewed also young people without intellectual disabilities or without disabilities. So the point is that the young disabled people did not have different aspirations about their future lives. So what is the key message from the research, from the scoping review we have done? The transition support is still largely defined by employment. And this is one of the critical points I will make during the presentation. Because we suggest that there needs to be a much broader perspective of support during transition for young people, and not only focusing on transition. I mean on employment. What appears also important to understand the transition as part of the life course or life trajectory. We know from the literature that people move in and out of education, employment, and support services and community roles. In other words, the life trajectories are not really linear. Adult life also includes relationships, leisures, volunteering, caring, and civic participation. So as a result, or I would complete that complexity perspective encourages us to view transition as an ongoing process rather than a single event. For us as practitioners or people who work with young people with disabilities, it means that transition should prepare people not only for work, but also for citizenship. And in my other presentations, I will focus on citizenship, or better to say, on active citizenship. The active citizenship at the individual level can be understood through three interconnected principles: security, autonomy, and influence. And I believe that those three principles provide us very useful framework or guidance for supporting young people with disabilities during transition and preparing them for meaningful life. So what is the security within the active citizenship framework? The active citizenship requires confidence that basic needs and rights will be protected, which means protection from poverty, exclusion, and insecurity. Security means also access to support when it's needed and confidence about the future. This principle is relatively well addressed by employment. So when a person is employed, can generate some income, it can well contribute to his or her security. It's a little bit different when we look at the autonomy as the second principle of active citizenship. Autonomy means having control over one's own life. For example, as concerning independent living, choice or determination, accessible environments and support, and participation in community life. We know from our say clinical, we know from the research that people with disability has been largely discriminated when it comes to independent living, which is the case particularly of the European countries, United States, United Kingdom, Australia, etc. Similarly, the traditionally persons with disabilities do not have opportunities to fully make decisions about their lives. There are restrictions in accessible environment and supports. The European countries, including the Czech Republic, has been working relatively hard to make the environment accessible. Also the environment in the academia. The campuses that are accessible now, making the academic life for persons with disabilities as sorry, I heard some
but
okay. May I carry on?
Sorry, Prof. Carry on.
Hello.
Can you hear us? Prof?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Just carry on. It was some interruption.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So I was talking about the autonomy, which is much influenced by the environment, the accessible environment. So, and when I was in Kisii, I was relatively well surprised about the accessibility of the environment, but I was surprised that the administration building had only staircases, but no lift. So what the point I'm trying to make is that there's always a room for for improvements, and only with direct participation of people concerned, the persons with disabilities, young people, the students, we can make the environment accessible. I'll give you a practical example. One of the buildings, the faculty building at the University of Slovenia, has been going, is under the reconstruction. And a year ago, my colleague Shara Kakanyawa, who is with us now, she was invited with a couple of students who had a hearing impairment and mobility impairments to a meeting with the architects and the management participating in planning the reconstruction, to discuss what should be done in terms of making the building accessible. So that's one of the example how to engage those concerned in planning and making the environment accessible. Of course, when we talk about environment, there are people who are excluded, not because of architectural barriers, but because of information is not available. Every day when I go by public transportation, by bus, by tram in Prague or in Pilsen, everybody has a head down looking at their mobile phone. So, I'm not going to criticize the mobile phones and an ID, but the point I'm making is that there are quite a few people who do not have access to those devices because of different disabilities. So that's the other the point is that it's not only the physical barrier which makes people disadvantaged, it's also the limited access to information. Now, the citizenship, going back to the active citizenship, includes having a voice and decisions that affect one's life. And this is the third principle, which is influence. Influence in participation, in decision-making, self-advocacy, voting and civic engagement, contributing to community life. So again, the point I am making is that the support for young people with disabilities around active citizenship should include also the support in supporting the principle of influence. Now, what are the implications? I mentioned in my presentation previously that the current transition support programs, including the programs run by universities supporting students with disabilities, remain too narrowly focused on employment, which is only part of our life. It is important, no doubts. However, the support should be tailored around other domains of life, including social relationships. We had a focus groups last year, 2 years ago, with young people with disabilities who were to graduate from colleges, from secondary schools. And one of them, these were the young people with disabilities. One of their main worry was losing the social network they had in the college. They were worried that they will lose the friends and they will not have new social relationships once they leave the school. So I suggest that the support during transition should also deal with the social connections or interconnections, supporting young people to maintain meaningful social relationships. The support should also be provided around the civic and political participation, and also in volunteering. I always argue that it's not really fair that the transition support programs, they focus on employment. It is very important, but looking at the statistical data, which demonstrates how many young people with disabilities are actually employed in the European countries, the figures are discouraging. There are only few people with disabilities who get paid employment. So we do need to look at the policies, how to make the support systems more effective. At the same time, I suggest that we need to provide support young people in doing other sort of work activities, for example, volunteering. In other words, create opportunities for meaningful activities for young people with disabilities, not only on paid employment. So what is the takeaway? That the active citizenship grounded in security, autonomy, and influence offers, from my perspective, a more comprehensive framework for supporting people with disabilities across the lifespan. Saying that, let me present this concluding slide, which comes from one of the very prominent scholar, John O'Brien, who introduced what he calls the 5 valued life experiences. Life experiences meaning inclusive lifestyle or engagement in inclusive society for a person with disabilities. So, and these are the values which includes belonging, being respected, sharing ordinary places. Nobody can be included if he or she is not present in an ordinary place. Contributing, meaning having opportunities to contribute to society by paid employment or by other means, for example, by volunteering, which I mentioned in my previous slide. And the last one is choosing. That's what I mentioned when I was talking about self-determination, making decisions. And of course, there are people who might need support in decision making, and this support needs to be provided. So that's I'm coming to the end of my presentation, which was about understanding disability not only as a deficit, understanding disability as something missing, but rather as through the quality of life paradigm, where quality of life is a multidimensional concept, and a person should get support for all the domains. I also introduced briefly the active citizenship with those 3 principles. I introduced those principles, and I also highlighted some of the implications for for the maybe also for the research and for the practice in particular. And I do believe the presentations of or understanding transition and support during transition for young persons with disabilities might be inspiring also for the Kisii University, which welcomes students with different kinds of disadvantages, not only persons with disabilities, but there are, of course, other issues why people do have rather complex or difficult lives. So thank you very much for your attention. Unfortunately, I don't know whether it's my laptop or it's the internet connection. The voice is not loud enough, but I hope I will hear if there are some questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. We are delighted to have listened to you. Very elaborate discussion that you've brought on board. And he has challenged us as the moderator comes on board. He has challenged us on two things. He has been here previously, and he has said that most of our institutional facilities have no space for learners with a disability, which we acknowledge, is it? Yes, it's something to learn. He's talked about it as being a transition. And I was just imagining as he was speaking, if I have had an accident, what happens after that? And my leg is amputated. I will be transitioning to that life. And I'll be one person who will need the space where I can drive my wheelchair also and be able to access. Another transition that is spoken about is about transitioning. Once we have trained students, how do we help them transit to the world of employment? This was very key and very important. We saw it in their country because we visited, that there is a whole small restaurant that employs people with disability only. And the question is, do we have such facilities in Kenya? Or as a university, do we churn out and we don't even care where this hearing impaired student, this student with physical disability is going? Is a challenge for us. Thank you so much. He liked our how we clap in various ways. And I would request that we could give him 3 factorial, though I know Prof will also do something. So let's give him 3 factorial. 1 to go. Thank you. Dr. Berry.
You'll bear with us. It's our first session, so we keep supporting each other. I'm sure we have listened to Professor very well. He has touched one of the very critical area in our society, and that is disability. From where I stand, we have seen this not only in the learning institutions, but even in our communities. Those are groups of people who are sometimes given very low attention. The other day I was in our village, and it started raining very heavily when we were doing some farm work. Then we took shelter. We wanted to take shelter in the neighboring hut or house. Guess what? When we got in, the owners in terms of parents were not there. We just pushed the door in like we do in the village. Every home is our home. So if it is raining, you don't have to ask for permission to get in. You just push the door and get in. Then when we got in, to our surprise, we found a very elderly, not really elderly, a good age girl. She's the only one in that house, but she's physically challenged. And for all the hours we were in that compound, we didn't see her, we didn't imagine there was somebody, and we have not seen her being brought out. Yeah? It's like the family is suffering from a stigma, so they have kept the girl in the house. That hit me so hard. And that may just be an incident that opened up to me, and I realized that that's what's happening. But how many of that kind are in our village? That sometimes parents, we don't blame them. It's because probably they are not exposed. They feel that stigma of shame. Probably they feel like they have nothing to do. And I guess, Professor John, you have just brought a few gists on this particular matter. And I guess we need to exploit further from our learning institutions to our communities to our companies, all that. We want to find out what is really happening. And it's an opportunity I want to give you to engage. Probably you want to talk to Professor Jan and you want to raise some matters, or you want to give a comment. It's your opportunity. And there's a mobile mic. I will pick a few because time is not on our side, so that we catch up with our program. And if you have something to ask Professor or to share this time, this is your opportunity. This is your opportunity. Just by raising your hand, we'll be able to see you and give you that opportunity. Welcome, Professor. It's your time also to speak.
Good morning, everyone.
Even the online, we will also give them opportunity to speak. Thank you. Go on, Professor. Just remind us your name again. Jesse, Professor Jesse.
Professor Yan, I want to thank you for the presentation that you provided, and I think you made some provoking ideas for us. But I have a question and I have a comment. And the question is, what is the role of public policy in achieving what you have shared with us? Is this going to happen by people volunteering to do what you shared with us, or is it going to take public policy to really strongly encourage and force organizations to do what you've suggested? And I'm going to give examples from the United States, where I live and teach. In the US, in the early 80s, a law was passed. It's called ADA, American with Disability Act. That law forces everyone, companies, universities, everyone, to put in place accommodation to accommodate people who were differently able. If I fast forward today within our universities, we are not only talking about physical disabilities that we can see, but now even at our university, where I teach at Appalachian State University in North Carolina, we as professors, as teachers, we are required now beginning this academic year, we are required to make sure that our materials that we use, including textbooks, are accessible to everyone. All students with different abilities, whether visual, whether audio, and otherwise. Just few weeks ago, we have an office called Office of Access and Opportunities on our campus, and I got a message from them that in my class in August, I'm going to have a student who is going to be on a wheelchair. And the class needed to be accessible to this student. And so the question I have is, for how do we make these accessibilities and accommodation possible for people who need to access these services? And again, I want to emphasize the issue of public policy, Professor Yan.
Thank you. Professor Yan, I hope you have picked that. You'll be able to respond. I want to take two more so that Professor can be able to respond to three at a go once we have picked all that. Another person who has an issue that you want to raise, a comment to Professor Yan. Yes, the Daktari Osoro.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation, Professor. It is mind-provoking, and it is going very well to borderlessness and inclusivity. And it is very true. I'm looking at this disability from a totally different eye after this presentation, and it is very true that in many of our operations, we have really not included them. We have not thought of the people who are enabled differently the way we do our things. So it is a wake-up call that they also need to have that sense of belonging. They need to have a voice, and they are heard, and they need to be loved and appreciated. And even not just looking at facilities, providing education, they graduate, or you are growing, you are transitioning from one level to another. How do we help them to transit from where they are to being fully operational in our society? And as Professor has put it, we need to have policies allowing them to be brought to the level where they are. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that comment. Another person. All right, while we are processing that further, I would want to return this to Professor Yan to respond to the issues that were raised by Professor Jesse, and also the comment made by Dr. Osoro. You can add more in terms of how do we prepare this? How do we prepare our environment for these very, very members of our society who are in that particular status? Welcome, Professor Yan. Are we on? Media? Yes, I can see. It's like there's some challenges of...
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for very interesting and important questions. Both questions are connected to policies, and I'll comment on that, drawing on my own experience from different countries. Very often, there are very good policies, And I would say that's also the case of Kenya. I had a meeting in Kisii with an administrator responsible for people with disabilities around the town and local communities. And I was impressed when he was describing the policy which is in place. Now, the question is implementation. So what I would maybe suggest to you that people do, the different stakeholders, they need to be aware about the policy. Sometimes people argue that there are no good policies, but very often, again, drawing on my experience, there are quite good policies. So the people need to get some, to raise, the awareness should be risen around the disability policies. Second, what seems to be functioning in terms of awareness raising in communities is sharing what we call promising practices. And I can give you an example. It might be a kind of a one-day celebration where a community, can be a municipality or Kisii town or Kisii University, would invite those who have overcome all the barriers faced by the society and introducing what they have done. So the life, in other words, the life stories are very powerful. Having people who do have lived experience, persons themselves or the family members, and sharing those stories with others, it's very powerful. So there are two answers. First, raise awareness about the policies which are in place. Also, it's to have kind of a monitoring mechanism in place. Very often we have the disability organizations who do monitoring. So the second, my proposal or suggestion is to organize kind of and to celebrate success, not necessarily looking at the problems and barriers, which are there, of course, but we need to see solutions, to be inspired, and to learn from others. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Yan, for that response. I want to also give an opportunity to the online audience. If you have a question or you want to contribute, this is your time. Just unmute your mic and be able to raise your concerns to Professor Yan, or you are sharing with us also on your way of understanding this. Online audience.
They can raise their hand online.
You can also raise your hand online so that we can be able to see. While that is going on, also in the, yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. My name is Charles. Charles Omboto comes from Kenya, but precisely in Kisii. And I work in the University of West Bohemia, and I'm happy that Professor Yan was my former professor many years ago, and now I have a privilege of working with him. I'm not just asking a question, but I just want to make a comment that the presentation on transition to lifespan has come in very timely for Kenya. And coupled with what has come out from Kitchen the other day, the Persons with Disability Act of 2025, then this is the time for us to move from policy, a very nice document which has come out, and thank God to the Senate, so that we can now start walking the talk. Transition should not just be something we talk about, something we hear about, but it's something we want to move with passion as a country, borrowing from the North and the South, so that we now start implementation. And it's my plea that from this conference proceedings, then it will give us actionable points for us to really see how our persons with disabilities can actually transit from school to school, from school to employment, from employment to long life at home as citizens, so that they can benefit. They are entitled to getting what we call government funding, and that is also in 2025 Act. Those things now should actually start working, so that we don't look at persons with disabilities as an A or B in the meetings, but we look at them as people who matter, as people are part and parcel with us when we're implementing policies right away from our homes, to the university and other places. Our persons with disabilities, they take the center stage. And we are living in the 21st century, we're moving to the 22nd century. We should not now be talking about this transition, but we should now act on this transition. And at this time, I want to say thank you very much, Professor, for this moving presentation, and I believe it will just add value to us as we move forward as an institution, as universities who drive policies and also push the government to act on what they say. Thank you very much, and I wish all of you nice presentation at this conference. Bye.
Thank you for that great contribution, and also to join us online. We are very grateful. We want also to still let it open to any other person from online. Okay, now we want to take the final from the people in person here, so that at least we can close the session and have a health break, and then we'll come back for another presentation. Anybody? Yes, Professor Basweti.
Yeah, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. When we talk about people who are disabled, I think in this community it's a negative connotation, in the sense that here when we talk of academic, talk about you are able differently, they appreciate it. I just wanted to just give a comment. And my question is about active citizenship. When you are talking about active citizenship, what exactly do you mean? Thank you.
Thank you for the comment and the question. I hope Professor Yan, you picked that. We want to also, to another person. I'll only pick two more and then we close.
Thank you for the opportunity. I was wondering why we don't have a sign language interpreter with us here for this session. As part of implementation of the things we're learning about, maybe for the next session, let's have a sign language interpreter with us.
Wow, that's a great observation. Shall we clap for her? That even as we talk on this very critical concept, we ourselves, we have not implemented a very simple level of sign language interpreter. I hope in the second and following we shall have one with us. Thank you for observing that. Yes, the last person as we move out of this session. Yes, here, there's one here, and that will be our last.
My beautiful name is Chris Kulubi, a student here who is seriously and deeply pursuing clinical medicine and surgery. Mine is just to give credit to the professor for the marvelous presentation, and what I've picked from him is that when a flower refuses to bloom, you first fix the environment and then the flower will automatically bloom. And what that simply means is that if the person refuses to change, you change the environment and you conduct the provision of support, and that person will automatically change. Thank you, Professor, for the marvelous presentation. Thank you.
Wow, thank you for that observation, and your comment is well taken. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as we close on our first session, I would want just to mention, before I mention, I would want Professor to respond to Professor Basweti's question. He asked, what do we really mean by active citizenship? Active citizenship. That comes to you, Professor Yan, kindly.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, thank you. The citizenship, the citizenship is very often understood as, for example, in a practical way, having a passport. But the active citizenship, and particularly related to disability, includes the autonomy, of supporting a person to be autonomous, to live a life he or she wishes to. Secondly, active citizenship is about the security. Security in terms of an income, in terms of safety, and last not least, the influence. Influence, to have opportunities to influence the environment I live. It can be the school, the university, senate, it can be a village, the community, it can be a political participation. Now, the point is that quite a few people who have different kinds of disadvantages, they have limited opportunities to exercise those three principles. And the point I was making is that there needs to be a support for young people with disabilities to become citizens, providing the tailored and individual support. Yeah, that's my response to the question. I do hope I was clear enough.
Yeah, you are very clear, and even the person who asked is nodding that he is at home with your responses. Now, as we come to the close of the first session, a few highlights. I think Professor Yan has responded to issues of public policy, and he says the critical aspect is to create awareness with all stakeholders. Let's create awareness of this particular phenomenon in our society, and not only creating awareness, we move on to implementation. We need to implement, let them not, and I think also the other contributor from the online said...
One more question from online.
Okay, we have one question from online.
Auma Grace Achieng asks, with mental health illness so rampant, how can one ensure they still have autonomy regardless of this?
I hope this goes back to Professor Yan. I hope you got this. I would want to ask that the person reading it to read it again to Professor Yan.
Auma Grace Achieng asks.
Yeah, thank you. That's
okay.
That's a extremely important point, and about the kind of an assumption that a person with mental health problem with intellectual disabilities, they never can be sort of independent or autonomous. And we know from the history that many people with disabilities, with mental health problems, they were excluded from the society, arguing these people are not capable to live on their own. Now, when we work or understand disability from the quality of life support, then we would change the approach and to assess the individual needs of a person and tailor the necessary support exactly according to individual needs. In other words, we can simply deny a person to be part of society or a community only because he's got an intellectual or mental health problems. This is a very easy and very harmful argument. We need to look at as I said, at the individual needs and try to tailor the support according to the needs. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope Achieng has gotten the response from Professor Yan. He's saying, once you have identified, we should not take the route of exclusion, but let's be able to tailor our help, support to that particular individual that will be able to take care of that individual accordingly. I think that is how I can paraphrase that. But we find in our societies, it's the other way. They are excluded. Nobody pays attention to them. They are left on their own, and that particular state continues to worsen because they are neglected. But we should be able to move close and be able to see if we can tailor help to them. Any other matters that probably are coming to us online or either questions? Thank you very much, media. I think we have been able to accommodate all of us. I was in the process of just closing by saying Professor Yan has ably brought us on board. He says he has created that awareness that these are members of our society, and we need to provide for them. We need to appreciate them. We need to come up with policies that really are out to support them. And once those policies have been formulated, we need to implement them. And then we need to create awareness in our society. And he has also said we need to share, like celebrate, have celebrations that mark their success. You know, like I think in our country, there is a day for that. And I think it's not only to mark the day for disability, but we need to celebrate and see them positively as members of our society and allow them to contribute, either in employment, allow them to be autonomous. And that is very, very important. And he has also, and our friend who came on also mentioned that this lifespan transition, either school to school, school to employment, needs also to have a proper transition. That we don't only graduate them and we don't know what life they are living after university. Probably we have provided very minimal in the university? What about out there? I know the government has that policy and has those provisions, but as a university, can we be able to do follow-up? Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Basweti talked of the language. When we name very negative, when you mention that it's hurting, we can have it like the people are enabled differently, yeah? Instead of saying these very short people, you can use a very different term to encourage them. With that, we come to the close of our first session. I want to say it's a good start. We have started on a very nice gear, and I'm sure we are going to engage a further gear to a very successful third multidisciplinary conference. Shall we all put our hands together for all those who have talked and our main keynote speaker? And I want us to do it. I know we did it earlier on, but this is for all of us plus him. Now we want to do the flowers. Daktari Osoro, how do we flower these things? You usually, know how to, kindly, with all due respect, will you kindly just lead us on this appreciation with the flowerings? We give to the keynote speaker, and then we give it to all of us as we close. Let me enable you.
Anyone who comes from Ukambani? They are shy. I will just try. Yeah. They say you gather flowers. He's laughing at me. But you gather flowers, and they say, Inge, you gather many. Cindy, you gather many flowers. You gather them, gather many. Are we together? When I do like this, we are gathering many and many. Then we will give, some will be blue, some will be yellow, some will be white, some will be green. Are we together?
Yes.
So, how do we say gather? Kyoko, how do we say gather? Gusia. 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 Gusia mono. Gusia inge. Man blue. Man yellow. Man red. Man blue. Man black. Man indigo. Man violet. Thank you.
Wow. I hope, Professor Yan, you got that. We have flowered you, and we have flowered all of us. And we want to say thank you very much. Shall we be upstanding as we go for a health break? And that is going to be for about, this is 30 minutes. 30 minutes. The health rooms are on this side, and then there's tea out there. You want to give us direction? Yeah, please.
Thank you. The tea will be served at the beautiful lawn between the School of Law and where the tents are pitched. There are tents pitched at the field. That's where we'll do our tea from. And as we exit, we'll get cards that will allow us access the tea. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Ross. Professor Mbidi said that we are notoriously religious. Will we be upstanding as we pray for the tea? We keep. We'll come back at 12:30. Yes. And if this goes also to the online team, please take a break for 30 minutes. We'll be back at 12:30. Probably you have some cup of tea where you are. We enjoy your cup with snacks as we also enjoy ours here. May I request Dr. please just say a short prayer for us as we exit for tea.
Let's give thanks. We thank you, Lord, for this morning that we've had. The engagements, very enlightening. You've given us your wisdom. Now we need to take a health break. May you bless whatever you've given unto us. In Jesus' name.
Amen. See you at 12:30. Please, let's keep time. And at the door there, you pick a meal card that you'll keep for the rest of the day for several servings. Thank you. God bless you. Bye-bye.